Hi, this is Len Furman, the sports time traveler, and I'm very excited to share with you the second part of my report on my virtual trip 100 years into the past to the 1924 Paris Olympics. The title of this episode is 1924 Paris Olympics, The Flying Finn's Finest Moments, Part 2. Subtitle: 100 years ago this month, Paavo Nurmi and Willi Rittila solidified the legendary dominance of Finland's distance runners. Paris, July 14th, 1924. In part one, I described the first 5 days of this virtual time travel trip to the 1924 Paris Olympics track and field meet at Stade Olympique de Colombes, the Olympic Stadium. You can read or listen to part one in the link I have provided in the written version of the Substack article. We begin part two with the report of my virtual trip back to day 6 of the track and field meet on July 11th, 1924. And then we will conclude with the reports from the 7th and 8th days, the final day of the track and field meet. Let's start with July 11th, the 6th day of the track and field meet, the 3,000 meter team race semifinals. This was a truly easy day for the Flying Finns. All they had to do was put in just enough effort to ensure they reached the finals in the 3,000 meter team race. The race required each team to have 3 runners complete the 3,000-meter run, and the winning team was based on total place count, with the lowest score winning. For example, if a team had runners finished first, second, and third, adding up those places, their total place count would be a score of 6. And that's exactly what happened for Finland in the first of the 2 semifinal heats. Nurmi won the heat in 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Riddle was second, and fellow Finn Semeli Tala was third. The Finns punched their ticket into the July 13th final with just 6 points. Nurmi's time would have put him on pace for a sub 15-minute 5,000 meters, so it was not truly an easy race. The top 2 teams in each of the 2 semifinals qualified for the finals. Great Britain, the other qualifier from the first semifinal, had 15 points. Norway, 27 points, Italy, 31 points, and Poland, 41 points, did not qualify. In the second semifinal, Edvin Weid of Sweden won the heat, but Sweden's other 2 runners finished only 8th and 12th, and Sweden's 21 points was only good enough for third. They were out of the final. The USA took first place in their semifinal heat with 9 points, and host France was the other qualifier with 18. Grantland Rice described the first semifinal heat in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Nurmi ran with the same ease, grace, and flawless rhythm he has shown in every start, without taking an extra breath as he continued to time his pace by inspecting the watch he carried in his right hand at the end of each lap. The New York Times wrote, Paavo Nurmi ran again today as if yesterday's running had been nothing to him. He ran, quote, at the head of his team in the team race and had the reward of seeing 2 of his countrymen come in behind him. It's not clear if Riddle tried to challenge Nurmi in this somewhat meaningless qualifying race, but Riddle was likely trying to conserve his energy, as this was his 6th consecutive day of racing at the Olympics, and he still has 2 more days to go. July 12th, the 7th day of the track and field, the cross-country race. Today was the 10,000-meter cross-country race. Cross-country running in good conditions requires hardiness and ruggedness, especially as it is run in Europe over difficult terrain that challenges the spirit of the athlete. Note from the Sports Time Traveler: I have had many first-hand experiences of what it is like to run cross-country races in Europe. In 1983, I was on the cross country team at the University of Kent in Canterbury, England. I ran in many events, including the British Universities Sports Federation BUSUF Cross Country Championship in 1983. It was the most grueling running experience I had in 40 years of competition. We ran through knee high water. We had to hurdle, climb over, or stop to open gates. We had to slog up a steep mud hill that had ropes available to help you pull yourself up the slippery slope if needed. If that wasn't enough, the race was run in a driving rain. And when we finished, we all had tea in the university gymnasium. Really. Now back to 1924. The 10,000-meter cross-country race was scheduled to start at the height of the day at 3:30 in the afternoon. Henry L. Farrell, in a front-page article in the Brooklyn Times-Union, called the cross-country race one of the most important on the Olympic program because both individual and team scores count. For the two greatest flying Finns, Paavo Nurmi and Willy Rittila, this meant the opportunity for one of them to win two gold medals, one for winning the individual race and one for the team victory. On this seventh day of track and field competition at the 1924 Paris Olympics, the conditions and the course layout for the cross country race made the event more rigorous than any of the athletes had likely ever experienced anywhere at any time before. The sun was strong and the temperature was at or close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, according to various newspaper accounts. Note from the Sports Time Traveler. Here in 2024, the website Sport Olympic, for which I have the URL below in the Substack version of the article, indicates that the temperature actually reached 45 degrees centigrade in Paris on this day, 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Now back to 1924. In addition to the intense, deadly heat, the course was extremely difficult. It was filled with hills and knee-high weeds. The runners also had to traverse stone paths. They finished with one lap inside Stade Olympique de Colombes, the Olympic Stadium. Don Skeen of the Chicago Tribune wrote, 39 perfectly trained athletes representing 13 nations started this terrific grind under a blazing sun which scorched the grass and blistered the paint on the massive Colombes Stadium. Only 15 runners were able to complete the race. Of that 15 that made it across the finish line, Skeen watched, quote, 8 of them reeling and staggering over the tape like drunken men. The Chicago Tribune posted a banner headline about the race on the front page of the July 13th Sunday paper. The banner headline read, Heat Fells 24 World Racers. The headline was referring to the 24 runners of the 39 starters that never even made it to the stadium. Skeen reported that of those 24, 5 of them were rushed to the hospital in a grave condition, and 3 were reported near the point of death. Just 7 men finished the race in good condition. Finishing first, of course, was Finland's Paavo Nurmi. Skeen wrote this about Nurmi. The Finn Superman won the race as cool and unruffled as an Eskimo patiently fishing through a hole in Arctic ice. Paavo Nurmi had destroyed the field in a time of 32:54. The Daily Mail newspaper in Brisbane, Australia described Nurmi's victory. The crowd rose as one man to cheer the amazing Nurmi when, looking fresh as paint, he emerged from the entrance of the stadium at the conclusion of the 10,000 meters cross-country race. He did not hurry to the finishing tape because there was nobody near him. He finished in a machine-like trot, sat on the grass, took off his shoes, and then strolled casually to the other end of the ground where he gathered his clothes and dressed. Willie Rittila finished second, 500 meters, and nearly a minute and a half behind Nurmi in 34:19. Rittila has now competed on 7 consecutive days over a total of 39,000 meters. Third place was a total surprise. 1 minute behind Rittila was American Earl Johnson, who works in the steel mills of Pittsburgh. He ran a time of 35:21. The AP story that appeared in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette called the cross-country run the most spectacular Olympic race ever witnessed, and declared that for Paavo Nurmi this race was, quote, the most thrilling victory of his career under the most trying conditions any runner ever faced, greater than even his unprecedented capture of 2 finals in the same afternoon, which was the day before. Grantland Rice, the great sports writer, was at the stadium and showed his admiration for Nurmi's accomplishment by writing a headline in his syndicated column that appeared in the Philadelphia Inquirer that read as follows: Marvelous Finn furnishes greatest of all track feats in latest victory. Rice wrote in the article, if any proof of his infinite running greatness is needed, Paavo Nurmi, Finland's mightiest of all Olympic heroes, gave it today. Under a blazing summer sun of flame and heat, with most of the others falling unconscious or collapsing, utterly broken along the route, Nurmi, the marvel of the track, won the 10,000 meters cross-country race by a margin of 500 meters. Where others were hovering upon the verge of death, sunstroke, or complete unconsciousness, Nurmi again finished running like a flawless machine without the slightest sign of distress, cool, serene, and unperturbed. Rice also made this statement about the race conditions: there has never been, in the history of track athletics, such terrific strain thrown upon the last limit of human endurance. Grantland Rice was not exaggerating about the conditions. John J. Hallahan of the Boston Globe was also at the race and wrote this in a page 1 article: conditions were man-killing. Man after man fell out, while many of those who stuck were running blind and half-conscious. Sweden's entire team collapsed under the terrible conditions, Vide and Bergstrom being taken to the hospital. Strangely enough, the Finns, from an equally cold climate, were as little bothered by the blistering air as any. Nurmi and Rittila seemingly are made from asbestos. Stories about the fate of some of the competitors seemed almost unbelievable. The London Observer reported that Robert Marshall of France was in such a bad state entering the stadium that, quote, having completely lost all sense of direction, he ended up by crashing at full tilt into the stands and was carried off unconscious. The London Daily Mirror noted that, quote, so numerous were the casualties that the ambulances were kept busy for hours, bringing in exhausted and prostrate runners. Henry L. Farrell, writing for the Brooklyn Times-Union, wrote in another front-page article, quote, runners collapsed right and left as they entered the oven-like stadium for the final lap. The straightaway was strewn with bodies at one point. Ambulances clanged across the center field, hurrying to hospitals with the casualties. The AP article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette included this story about 2 of the runners who were felled by the heat after entering the stadium. Andia, a Spanish runner, sprawled face downward in sight of the grandstand just as he struggled inside, while Dolik, the French star, brought a moan from his countrymen when, after tottering halfway round the track, he fell in a heap in front of the official tribune and in sight of the tape. Such was the fallout from the race conditions that only 3 of the 13 teams were able to be scored, as scoring required at least 3 of each team's runners to complete the race. Here were the final results of the 10,000-meter cross-country race. Individual results: gold medal, Paavo Nurmi, 32:54. Silver medal, Willy Rittila, 34:19. Bronze medal, Earl Johnson, 35:21. And the team results: gold medal to Finland, silver medal to the United States, bronze medal to France. No other team had three finishers to post a score. Paavo Nurmi won 2 gold medals, one for the individual cross-country race and one for the team race, increasing his total at this Olympics to 4 gold medals. Willy Rittila won his 3rd gold medal of the Games with his team gold medal in the cross-country race. Hours after the race, the loudspeaker in the stadium announced that all the runners were recovering, according to the Daily Mail in Brisbane, Australia. The newspaper then added this comment about the runners who had been unable to finish as compared to Paavo Nurmi. The wholesale collapse emphasizes the apparently supernatural powers of Nurmi. Paavo Nurmi and the Flying Finns solidified their legend with this performance in perhaps the most difficult race ever run in the modern Olympics. July 13, the 8th and final day of track and field, the 3,000-meter team race, and the marathon. After the heat decimated the runners in yesterday's cross-country race, the running events were moved to later in the day today. The marathon was started at 5:30 p.m. instead of the original early afternoon scheduled start, and the 3,000-meter team race did not start until 6:30 p.m. It was also, thankfully, not nearly as warm by late afternoon. The New York Times reported on the weather in Paris as follows: the day, which had been hot, began to cool, with a little breeze blowing. The marathon. When the marathon began at Stade Olympique de Colombes, the 58 starters did not include Paavo Nurmi or Willy Rittila. Both of them were slated to run in the 3,000-meter team race that would take place on the track while the marathon runners were out on the course. That made the marathon the only individual race over 800 meters at this 1924 Paris Olympics that was not won by Paavo Nurmi or Willy Rittila. Without Nurmi or Rittila in the race, the favorite, according to American newspapers, was Clarence DeMar of Melrose, Massachusetts, a little suburb north of Boston. John J. Hayes, the American gold medalist at the 1908 Olympic Marathon in London, penned an article in yesterday's New York Daily News in which he wrote, "America's main hopes in today's Olympic marathon are pinned to the shields of Clarence DeMar." The 36-year-old DeMar had won the Boston Marathon in 1911 in record time. He then took a bronze medal in the 10,000-meter run at the 1912 Stockholm Olympics. Shortly after that, he stopped running competitively for many years. When he started up again in 1922, he set another record in winning his second Boston Marathon, and he followed that up with victories in the Boston Marathon in 1923 and earlier this year, 1924. Finland's Hannes Kolamainen, the original flying Finn, who won the 10,000-meter gold medal in 1912 and the marathon gold medal in 1920, was entered in today's marathon, but a leg injury forced him to scratch from the race. Two other Finns, with no prior Olympic experience, Villar Kiranen and Albert Stenroos, were also considered to be pre-race favorites. They had finished first and second in the Finnish Marathon Olympic trials. At the beginning of the race, DeMar went to the front. He was third leaving the stadium and then took the lead and held on to it through 10 miles. Then Stenroos made a move and went in front. John J. Hallahan covered the race for the Boston Globe. He wrote that Stenroos jogged to the front and was never headed, running strongly as a horse. DeMar's efforts to catch him were unavailing. Demar was eventually passed by Romeo Bertini of Italy. Perhaps Demar was slowed down by cabbage leaf sandwiches. Since you're not going to believe this, I have to show you the actual newspaper clipping from the July 14th, 1924 Boston Globe regarding what the American runners wore during the marathon. I have the actual newspaper clipping in the written version of the Substack article. I'm going to read the excerpt of it here. The American runners wore cabbage leaf sandwiches on their heads to prevent any possibility of sunstroke. That is, they wore wet cabbage leaves inside of handkerchiefs bound around their skulls. The device worked, for no American collapsed, and all finished running except Ralph A. Williams of Quincy. DeMar said he felt good on the road and he finished strong. He had no alibi, saying that he ran well and had no complaint to make. Even though DeMar reported he felt good, he couldn't make up any ground on Stenroos or Bertini. Albert Stenroos ran with ease and plenty of reserve strength, according to Hallahan in the Boston Globe. Stenroos entered the stadium with a 6-minute lead. Hallahan wrote, "At the end, he burst through the tape and ran half the length of the field just to let himself slow down. His winning time was 2 hours, 41 minutes, 22 seconds. Bertini of Italy finished second and DeMar third, a full minute behind the Italian. Another Finn, Lauri Hallinen, was a minute and a half behind DeMar in fourth. These were the only 4 runners to break 2 hours and 50 minutes. Only half the runners finished the race." The 3,000-meter team race. This was the final distance running event of the 1924 Paris Olympics on the track. There were no individual medals for this team-only race, unlike the cross-country event from yesterday. The Finnish team consisted of Paavo Nurmi, Willi Rittila, and Elias Katz. The Finns had won the semifinal 2 days earlier by sweeping the top 3 spots in their heat. The USA team had won the other semifinal. Their team included the 9-time American mile champion Joey Ray. Ray chose to focus solely on the 3,000-meter team race in this Olympics. Ray's race strategy indicates that perhaps he felt that running fresh against the Finns might be the key to beating them. The Philadelphia Inquirer described the start of the race. Quote, "Meeting the Finnish champion Nurmi for the first time in these games, Joey Ray, the American mile champion, tried to match strides with him for 2 laps. The Houston Post reported Ray was leading at 1 kilometer, which is 2 laps on this 500-meter track. Then Paavo Nurmi shifted into a higher gear at the start of the 3rd lap. The Post continued. Nurmi joined him, meaning Ray, and ran him leg weary in 1 lap. Ray was finished right there." The Philadelphia Inquirer noted that Ray's early race effort, quote, "failed and proved so exhausting for the little American that Ray was out of the race long before its completion." Ray did complete the race, but he finished 18th out of 19 finishers. Once he dropped back, Nurmi was home free. Paavo Nurmi won the race by 80 yards over Willi Rittila in a time of 8:32. Rittila's second place time was 8:40. The Houston Post noted that Nurmi and Rittila, who finished in that order, were fresh after a hard race in which the Olympic record was broken. Nurmi's time was 4 seconds faster than the old record set by fellow Finn, the original flying Finn, Hannes Kolamainen, in 1912. 2 runners from the United Kingdom, Bertram MacDonald and H.P. Johnston, finished surprising 3rd and 4th in the 3,000-meter team race and helped the UK to take the silver medal. Elias Katz of Finland finished 5th, in 8:45, thus giving Finland a total of just 8 points for first, second, and fifth to easily win the gold medal in the team race. The United States placed runners 6th, 8th, and 11th for a score of 25, good enough to take the bronze medal. Note that Joey Ray, even though he didn't place among the top 3 Americans for scoring purposes, still was awarded a bronze medal by virtue of being on the American team. With the gold medal, Paavo Nurmi had now won a record 5 gold medals in this 1924 Paris Olympics. Willy Rittila had 4 gold medals, and one other Finn, Elias Katz, had a distance running gold medal for his part in the 3,000-meter team race. In the London Evening Standard, William Seagrove, one of the British runners in the 3,000-meter team race who finished 16th, was quoted saying, "The Finns are not human. A post-mortem would reveal they possess turbine dynamos in place of hearts." What the Flying Finns, particularly Paavo Nurmi and Willy Rittila, did at these Olympic Games was nothing short of astonishing. Nurmi ran 7 races in 6 days. He won every race he competed in. Rittila ran on all 8 days of the competition. In the written version of the Substack article, I have a picture of the 3 flying Finns who won gold medals in the 1924 Paris Olympics. Willy Rittila with 4, Paavo Nurmi with 5, and Elias Katz with 1 gold medal. The Seattle Union Record declared, "The honors for individual brilliancy undoubtedly should go to Paavo Nurmi and Willy Rittila, the Finns who dimmed the luster of all other competitors by their performances." Postscript: Paavo Nurmi's 5 gold medals at the 1924 Paris Olympics are the most by any track and field athlete in the history of the modern Olympic Games. No other track and field athlete has ever won more than 4 gold medals in one Olympic Games. Willy Rittila's 4 gold medals in Paris ties him with just 4 other track and field athletes as the only winners of 4 gold medals in a single Olympic Games. The others are all sprinters: Jesse Owens, Carl Lewis, Alvin Krenzlein, and Fanny Blankers-Koen. Elias Katz remains the only Jewish distance runner ever to win a gold medal in a distance running event in the Olympic Games. Sadly, the team events in distance running are no longer a part of the Olympics. This makes it much more difficult for distance runners to earn multiple medals the way sprinters and swimmers can do so. Thanks for reading, and please share this article.